start with a small story about myself, how I got into contact with Reach IV. This was somewhere in the middle of 2011. I was a fresh chartered accountant and I had MBA aspirations in my mind. And that time I was working with a Indian firm. And then that is when I heard about Reach IV. And it was a similar kind of an event, and that was, what I remember correctly, that was in Jai Hind College. Yeah. And the speaker was Deepak Jain, of the Dean of INSEAD. And that is when it gave me a good impression about this firm, about Vibha and her services, how good this firm can be. And that is, and then let me continue about what Reach IV is all about. Reach IV is basically a premium education institution or an education institution advisor that helps budding young students who generally get accepted into top tier education institutes such as Harvard, Columbia, MIT, Indian School of Business, and lot many other schools. Reach IV specialists are generally graduates from among these rich or highly renowned institutions, and they are masters in this subject. They help very closely the applicants, the students who want to apply to the schools. They are very interested, and they are very interested in going into the minor details of the applications of each and every minor details of each and every thing in the applications, whether it's the essays or it's the CV or it's about any other thing which is required by the institution in their admissions. They are also very helpful with regards to planning if somebody wants to take a GMAT or if somebody wants to take a GRE. This is all before the application procedure. So Reach IV was very rich with its specialist, specifically with regards to helping everyone. Now let me speak something about Vibha. Vibha holds an MBA degree from Harvard Business School and also holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Carnegie Mellon. She has also pursued other courses from University of California, Berkeley, Indian School of Business, London School of Economics, and various other renowned institutions. Vibha is a co-president of Harvard Club of Mumbai and is also there on the Carnegie Mellon Admissions Council. Her professional experience spans across finance, fashion, media, public relations. She has also worked in New York in an asset management firm and has helped the firm to establish its base in Mumbai as well. She is an extremely passionate person about education, and she strongly believes that education is a social equalizer. And that is what is a distinguished factor about Vibha. She is someone who aspires that there are students in India who don't have much guidance about applying abroad, specifically in countries like US or Europe, or maybe some good institutions in Southeast Asia like Singapore or Australia. She has a desire to help those students so that they can use her experience, get benefited from it, and apply to those institutions. Well, if I speak something about my personal association with Vibha, I met her for the first time in 2011. And wow, I was just amazed by her personality. Her belief in Mahatma Gandhi's words that live as if you were to die tomorrow and learn as if you were to live forever. Like that touched me the most. So now, from now on, I just request Vibha to take the show on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anik. It was absolutely a pleasure working with you on your application as well, and I'm glad ISB worked out well for you. So we're going to start this afternoon with introducing our speakers for today. Umang Kajaria has an undergraduate degree from Carnegie Mellon University and an MBA from Harvard Business School. Umang is currently a senior associate at Apax Partners, a leading private equity firm, and he focuses on investments in India. His expertise lies in the field of private equity, healthcare, and technology investing, amongst others. He has previously worked with Goldman Sachs, and with Carnegie Mellon, he was very actively involved in the campus and the community. He was a teaching assistant for several computer science courses, as well as a research assistant in the field of computer vision. Umang, thanks so much for being here. Harsh Parikh graduated with a Master's of Science in Information Networking and a Bachelor's of Business Administration at Carnegie Mellon. He is currently a director at Western India Steel Company, a company that manufactures and trades in steel, and is also into real estate. The company has forayed into the food business and boasts of famous names like Panero and Pronto. Post his master's, Harsh spent 2 years with Citadel in Chicago. Citadel is a quant trading fund. And thereafter, he came back to India to join his family business. At CMU, he was a representative of the Graduate Student Assembly and is a fervent outdoor person. His passions include hiking, adventure sports, and sailing. Harsh, Reach IB welcomes you. Thank you for joining us. And finally, we have Paresh Kapashi with us. Paresh has done his MBA from Carnegie Mellon University with an emphasis on economics and finance. He is currently the MD at Indu Corporation Private Limited. The company is involved in the import and distribution of steel, zinc, and aluminum products used in the construction and infrastructure industry. The company currently enjoys a turnover of over 1,200 crores. Paresh is also an avid golfer and plays tennis at a competitive level. Paresh officially is responsible for the India Alumni Club at Carnegie Mellon, and he was also on their international board of advisors. Paresh, thanks so much for taking the time out for us. So we're going to start with going into a flashback of the panelists. Tell us about your early years, your childhood, your school years. What was the family interaction like? Give us a little glimpse into the early years.
Sure. So I grew up in Calcutta. I went for my high school there, and my family's from there as well. For my, growing up, I was a good student, but I wasn't exceptional in any particular sports, but I was a, good all-rounder, I would say. I played, tennis for my school and also rowed for the school. In addition to that, I was involved in a lot of the clubs in the school. Growing up, I would say my parents didn't necessarily push me in one direction. They were more open to, what I was passionate about and sort of allowing me to chart my own course. I was very interested in technology and science growing up, and that was the reason I ended up sort of getting to Carnegie Mellon. But that's a short background.
Hi, I actually grew up in Bombay compared to growing up in Calcutta, and I did my schooling at Cathedral School, which is also located here, and some of you might have studied there. So basically, my parents were pretty much open for me, and they encouraged doing extracurricular activities. So I participated in various sports, such as tennis and cricket, and also did drama and so on. And I was decent in studies, nothing that great. And actually, I did my 11th, 12th in Cathedral School in Commerce. And eventually, I went into Carnegie Mellon and actually did computer science. So that was a big change. And there's something which is very possible if you go to study there.
Hello. Yeah, I went to St. Mary's in Vaikalaya and up to 10th grade. School, I was very interested in maths and science. My father was a chemical engineer from UDCT, so something in the genes, so I was also interested in the sciences. Being from St. Mary's, an all-boys school, we had several sports we all participated in. And after that, I joined Jai Hind College for my 11th and 12th and did my engineering at VJTI. I'm a civil engineer from VJTI and worked for a couple of years, then applied for my MBA and went to Carnegie Mellon.
Great. So, Umang, you did a double major at Carnegie Mellon, computer science and business administration. Some people in the audience here also looking at doing the double degree. Can you give us a sense of how the double degree helped you further your goals?
Sure. So, when I was going for undergrad, I was always, as I said, very interested in science. And, as a kid growing up, I would always sort of open up my toys and, was very curious, I would say. And that was the reason I ended up going in for computer science. While at school, at college, I had got a chance to work with a lot of professors to do research. My first summer, I ended up working with one of the professors doing research in robotics. And then during the next year, I was working in research in computer vision. So I would say the school is very open to technology, research, innovation. But at the same time, coming from a business family and always being interested in commerce, I ended up deciding to do a double major in business and then ended up actually working in finance afterwards. So I would say, the school allows you to actually try out various different things, figure out where your passions lie and really explore it accordingly.
Great. And Harsh, you'd give us a sense of being from Cathedral, you did your 11th and 12th there. How did you cross that first chasm of even wanting to study abroad? Why did you think of studying abroad and how did you sort of navigate that process?
So I wanted to study abroad. I actually talked to a lot of people who had actually been and studied abroad and looked at the curriculum and and talked to the teachers and professors. And I realized that there were 2-3 things advantages about studying abroad, which I believed was worth it to go abroad to to do an education. So one of them was obviously the breadth. Once you're not only doing the course which you're actually registering for, like engineering, you also have to do other breadth courses such as world history, sciences, mathematics, and so on and so forth. And one of the other things was a lot of extracurricular activities, exposure to different people, exposure to people abroad, different people from different places. And one of the main things which I realized after I started my graduate studies is that there's a lot of practical experience there which you do not find here. One of the things was that a lot of students who came there after the undergrad from India, they weren't very good at programming, which they had to catch up in the first semester, which took them very long. So the practical experience, both in business and computer science, is much more in a degree in the US versus here, which I felt.
So just to reiterate your point, for you going to your undergraduate at Carnegie Mellon, I was a business major at the undergrad level. I still had to take world history. I had some electives in sciences that I had to fulfill. I had to take psychology. We had to take programming, because even though it's a business school, it's such a heavy technical school that programming courses were compulsory, which back then seemed very cumbersome, because I was like, I didn't sign up to be sitting in the lab 8 hours a day filling in these programming codes. But now in hindsight, I'm so glad I had that exposure. So the school makes it imperative for you to do the electives. It's not voluntary or optional, it's baked into the program. Paresh, you had a family business. You knew that's what you were going to do. Still, you went ahead and did the MBA. So for people who have family businesses and have a pretty charted out route for them, why the MBA?
In fact, that leads me to why an MBA. Since I had a technical background, I did my engineering. I felt to lead my business, I did need all-round skills, in terms of accounting, economics, marketing, and leadership. So underrated, but now leadership is, managing people has become one of the greatest challenges for all business leaders and business owners. So at that time, I said I need to have an all-round skills, develop business skills along with my technical skills, and that prompted me to go for an MBA. So that's how the application process started.
We've been alma maters of the same schools, Carnegie Mellon, HBS. I haven't been lucky enough to follow you to APACS, but at least we have the same academic credentials. So what was it about studying abroad that you consider something unique? So how would you contrast your experience studying here in India versus studying at CMU?
So I actually never did, post-high school studies in India, but I would say that the US education system is phenomenal. It just allows you so much flexibility in terms of, how, what you want to study and how, also in terms of the types of courses you want to study, and it's extremely practical, I would say. I mean, particularly a school like Carnegie Mellon, where the courses are not designed to be theoretical. What they're teaching you in class is really what's happening, in the real world. So I think that particularly was very exciting for me. And then for the MBA, I would say the fact that the school is so just international, and it's a melting pot of people from all around the world. You just get to work with people from all, different cultures, and understand how all of that works. And frankly, as we move towards a more globalized world, it's very important to be able to have that experience.
Okay, so I get a pretty good sense of why you chose to study abroad. Harsh, you chose to stay at the same school. You could have well got a master's from another school, experienced another environment, experienced another country. Why stay at Carnegie Mellon for both undergrad as well as masters?
Actually, I did look at other schools. I did apply. I looked at other schools to apply for a graduate program. But I realized after looking at the websites, talking to people, that Carnegie Mellon has a very strong interdisciplinary program. I did the I&I course, which actually is a collaboration between the business school, the computer engineering department, the computer science school, and the Heinz School of Public Policy, which is you won't see in many other universities in the US. So this is one of the major things and strengths of Carnegie Mellon about being interdisciplinary programs, and where you can do different things in different fields. And also there's lots of flexibility. Like you could do courses in any place where you found an interest whether it was engineering or business. So I did a lot of business courses, which I couldn't do if I'd gone to some other school and tried to do a technical master's degree, actually.
And Paresh, you were a beneficiary of both the Indian education system and the American one. You did your engineering here in India. Since you got this contrast, can you share with the audience what is the contrast between the system here and the system there?
The first thing that will strike you is, the class size. Here, usually the class size is very large, 50, 60. Like in my engineering class, we had 60 people. Once you go to a US institute, the class size just shrinks. The student to faculty ratio is 10:1, like that was at our university, at Carnegie Mellon. So the interaction with the faculty, with professors, is so informal, and you can actually study a wide array of subjects with the same professor. Like I was very interested in corporate finance and economics once I got introduced to that. And that same professor was taking so many electives in our second year that I chose to study because that same professor was teaching them. So the interaction between faculty and students is just phenomenal in the US. It really helps in studying any subject very thoroughly to get a great in-depth knowledge of any particular you're interested in. So it was great for me being from a technical background. I needed a good grounding in finance and economics. I got it from Carnegie Mellon, and it stood me in good stead since then.
Okay, so thank you for sharing a little bit of your personal backgrounds and your early choices you made. How did you settle on Carnegie Mellon? So a lot of people here, obviously, when we apply to schools, we apply to a whole range of colleges because a lot of colleges are purportedly good at a certain subject. How did you hone in on Carnegie Mellon? So how did you go through the process of college selection and then pick CMU?
Sure. So for me specifically, I was looking for an undergrad school that had a very strong technical foundation. So that was the first step, and Carnegie Mellon certainly scored very high on that. In addition to that, as I said, I was interested in business as well, and the one sort of uniqueness about Carnegie Mellon is that it has an excellent business program as well through Tepper. So that combination is just very strong and allowed me to make the decision for myself personally. The other thing was that Carnegie Mellon is in Pittsburgh, which is a small college town. It used to be a big industrial town back in the day, but now over many years, there are tons of colleges in that area. There's University of Pittsburgh, Chatham, Duquesne. So the experience that you get in a college like that versus being in a big city like New York maybe is just fundamentally very different. You end up becoming a lot closer to your classmates, and because frankly there's nothing else to do in the city, or I wouldn't say that, but there's not as much to do as a city like New York that would distract you. So I think those were two big reasons for me personally.
When I did the application process, obviously, like most of us here, we're looking at academics as one of the major reasons, to apply. We want to apply to the best schools. So that was obviously one of the things, the rankings and different websites where the details are given. And the second thing I was looking for were the small class sizes. Like Paresh mentioned, Carnegie Mellon has small class sizes. I didn't want to go to a school where there were 200 people or 250 people in a class. So I had this personalized experience, personalized contact with the professors, and so on and so forth. So I applied to a number of schools, and then from the ones I got into, I selected 4 which I got a chance to visit. So I visited NYU, which is New York University, Carnegie Mellon, Northwestern, and Georgetown. So after visiting these universities, all of them are really good in the business at least. So I decided to go with what I felt, which I enjoyed, which I felt I could stay 4 years and actually study and enjoy my life as well. So that's how I decided to go with Carnegie Mellon, actually.
For me, I'm repeating, being an engineer, I was looking at a school which was more quant-oriented, and Carnegie Mellon is a very quant-oriented school, right? So it was one of my top choices. Being an engineer, I thought I would fit into any program at Carnegie Mellon because it's quant-oriented. Then when I read about Pittsburgh, the city, at my time, it was 1988, 89, it was voted one of the most livable cities in the US by one of the rating agencies. So that also precipitated the decision, that this has a blend of good campus life and good academic life, and that's why I chose Carnegie Mellon.
So when we went in 99, 2000, it was still voted once again the most livable city in the United States. So for anyone who's visited Pittsburgh, So yes, there isn't as much to do as there is in New York. It's not an overwhelming city experience. It's a very livable, sort of calm city. They have stadiums, they have concert halls. So it's meant for more, it's a family city. It's not really a crazy New York, Vegas, LA kind of experience. And yes, my program was very quantitative as well. I didn't sign up for such a quant program being a business major, but even my marketing classes required quantitative analysis. So they try and infuse quant and analytics in pretty much every major you do. I'm guessing even the drama school students had an element of quant infused. Great. So everyone hears about diversity at school, and in India we live in a very diverse country. So my classmates in India were also from very diverse backgrounds. Can you give us a sense of what diversity means at Carnegie Mellon from your personal experiences? How did you experience diversity at Carnegie Mellon?
Sure. So I would say from all the, so I think it's one of the most international schools in the US, from the private schools at least. I think the number of international people there is, in terms of percentages, is one of the highest. I mean, from my personal experience, my roommate was Korean. He grew up in Korea, came to the US to study. My core group of friends, were from South America, from Europe. I mean, there was a highly, highly diverse group of people, and then we would travel together in the US while we were there. So I think certainly diversity is a key thing, that stands out when you look at Carnegie Mellon. The other thing I would say that really stands out is, the fact that the undergrad, at least the people that I went to school with, they were extremely passionate about what they were looking to do. So people come in with a focus on one area. So it's either people are very focused in engineering or sciences, and they're extremely passionate about that. And the people, for example, in my computer science class, a lot of these kids had grown up really, programming when they were 7, 8, 10 years old, and were just so far ahead of everyone else. Similarly, I think people in the drama school and the architecture school, all of these people I feel like they come with a very strong passion for what they want to specifically study. So I think that certainly stood out for me.
So regarding diversity, at least for the graduate master's programs, there's not so much diversity as the undergrads or the MBA program. We basically had 30 students in my year in INI, and around 60% were Indians and Chinese from India and China, not born and brought up in the US. So there was less diversity in that sense, but when doing campus activities and extracurricular activities, you tend to mix with a lot of different people. For example, one of the MBA courses which I did, there was someone from Azerbaijan, from Turkey, from USA. So there were a lot of different people which you tend to meet and mix with, not only in your classes, but also with extracurricular activities and outside of class. So there's a lot of diversity in that sense.
Yeah, even though the MBA class is only 150 students, we had representatives from 25 countries. So it was great meeting people from different backgrounds, different cultures. And we had a lot of courses where there was a lot of group study going on. So within your group, sometimes you'll have people, 5 people group will have people from 3 or 4 countries. So it was great getting to know them, even better as the courses went on. So overall, we've still remained friends with so many of these people, and at our reunions, it's like, we're going back 25 years back whenever we meet, So it was a phenomenal experience meeting all these people.
You said you invested in one of your classmates'
Yeah,
companies.
yes. So that was part of the alumni network. I have one of the courses in Carnegie Mellon is game theory, and that's a simulation of an actual company being run by us, by students in the MBA class. And the president of my group became a very close friend of mine, and he became an entrepreneur 2-3 years after we graduated. And I'm one of the major investors in that company in Pittsburgh right now. So.
So there's diversity in terms of racial and people coming from different countries like Korea, etc. Also, it's a very small, compact school. So if I looked out of my dorm room window, I could see the drama school, I could see the School of Computer Sciences, and I could see the main center where they had the gymnasium and the food courts, etc. So because it's so compact, you're living with and around everyone. So my floor mates were people from the drama school, someone studying psychology, obviously the computer science people. And each school has its own unique type of person who gets admitted. So we were joking about this earlier, and also if you're in a sorority or a fraternity, every school has its own element. So you can also, when you have friends from other schools, you get a sense of those various elements that make up Carnegie Mellon. So there is no one type of person who gets into Carnegie Mellon. It's very school specific. give us a sense of a classic day at Carnegie Mellon. So how would your day start? How would it end? What would you sort of fill up your day with?
So I would say it's a pretty intense day when you're there. It's a pretty intense program and a pretty intense day. I mean, you obviously design it as you like, but I'll just give you my example. I mean, classes typically start at 8:30. You have between 3 and 4 classes every day. So you're going from 8:30 till about noon in classes. These classes are pretty small, and you have to, as a result, you can't be sleeping. You have to be participating in them. Right after that, you break for lunch. There are these food trucks that are are sort of a typical part of the Carnegie Mellon campus. So the entire campus really comes there for lunch. You do that. Right after that, you are typically go to the library and catch up on all your homework for the next day. And then about 3-4 o'clock, you get a break. So a lot of people who are interested in sports, they then end up, there's tennis courts are right in the middle of campus. The pool is right by, so you end up going to the gym, go to play squash, go play tennis, etc. I was part of a fraternity, so as part of that, I had to participate in a lot of sports activities where I would represent the fraternity as well. So you would typically have a lot of league championships or activities, sports activities with them. So between 4 and 7, you are basically very busy and active in all of that. And then I think you take a break, and then you catch up on school for a little bit. And then Oakland, which is University of Pittsburgh, is literally a 10-minute walk from Carnegie Mellon. And there are a lot of nice restaurants 10 minutes away. So typically you'd end up going there for dinner, or you'd walk out of campus. So campus is very small, which is a great thing because you're living right there and everything is very accessible. But then the city is also close enough. There's a lot of nice neighborhoods that are 10-15 minutes away. So you can really experience that as well.
Kind of building on what just Umang said, we have classes every semester. We decide on classes, and the classes timings vary actually from every semester, class to class. So during the day you have classes, certain days you might not have classes. Besides that, as a grad student, we had an office where we could work on our projects as well as on our thesis. As grad students, we had to do a thesis. So whenever we were not in class, my friends and I were either in the university department office doing work on the thesis or on our projects. And besides that, at certain times we do activities such as play sports, or I was a member of the Graduate Student Association. So I used to go there and help them, and also discuss various requirements which students required. So it was like a student body where representatives of each and every department meet to discuss things regarding what can be improved for student life. So that is one of the major things which I was involved in, which I wanted to be involved in, how to improve students, like my life as a student there, as well as people coming after me as students.
Yeah, for those of you applying to the graduate school, first year you're hit by a truck. The first year is extremely intense in grad school. Your work days are more than 12, 14 hours a day because there's a lot of classes, then individual work and group work, a lot of group activities. So you don't even look at time, lunch, dinner, whenever. It's in school only all the time. So it's very intense the first year. Second year is much better. You're doing electives most of the time, so it's easy pace. There isn't so much group work, and most of the people start looking for jobs, placements. That becomes a major part of their life. But first year is extremely intense, so please be prepared for that, those of you who are going to grad school.
At the undergrad level also, it was actually very intense. So again, the panelists, we were discussing this. We've pulled a lot of all-nighters in the library. A lot. Not one, not two, several all-nighters in the library. So if you're signing up for Carnegie Mellon, just know that it's a demanding school, academically demanding. It's not like you're off to college in America and it's going to be 4 years of fun and frolic. It's a very, very demanding, intense, quantitative, analytical program. It's not a college experience just for the fun of it. Obviously, there are great parts baked into the program, but it's very demanding.
I skipped over those parts.
You have
Yeah.
your weekends.
You skipped over and made it to HPS, of course.
No, I'm saying I skipped over in my speech, in my talk.
Okay. So I want to get to favorite academic course. So as a business major, as I said earlier, we all had to take computer science courses as well. And thanks to the school encouraging us to take those classes, I ended up taking an advanced programming class, 15,200 data structures. And it really exposed me to programming and coding and things which I was not exposed to earlier, and I hadn't even fathomed I would ever be exposed to. So that for me was an experience because it helped me push beyond my comfort zone. Otherwise, I come from a business family too, studying finance and operations and strategy is sort of second nature. So that was something interesting for me. Can you guys go through either one or two of your favorite classes and why you think so?
I mentioned earlier, corporate finance and economics was something I took to immediately, in the first year itself. So it became a very good course and very interesting course because the faculty member, like I mentioned earlier, was outstanding, and the interaction with him was so frequent, and the class size in the electives was, we had 5 students in the electives, so it was very personalized. It was more, besides being personalized, it was more business oriented, not academic oriented, more practical. So I learned a lot in that class, and till now I appreciate what I've learned in terms of capital management and raising capital and managing capital from the skills I acquired at that time. So it was great. Finance and economics was a great subjects for me.
I actually liked a course which actually Paresh mentioned earlier, management game. So in that we actually were divided in teams of 5 each, and we had to manage a simulated company against the other teams. And there were 2 products, basically a high-end premium watch and a low-end price-sensitive watch. So we had to manufacture these and sell them in 6 countries. All this was a simulation, obviously. So you put in the data into a computer program, and compared to what other students have put their data, you make money or you lose money, and so on and so forth. So we had to look at every aspect of the whole company, from finance to operation management, where the company should be, how we, whether we should have a larger production in the premium market or in the price-sensitive product. And also there were 6 markets, 6 countries, which each with its own price sensitivity. Some markets were, like China, were more price sensitive. Places like UK were more premium oriented. So they behaved also differently. So we had to try and figure those things out while doing these simulations. And this was, it was for 3 years. The simulation was for quarter by quarter for 3 years. So there were 12 simulations totally. And what I enjoyed about it is we had to work in a team of 5 of us to manage the whole company and look at every aspect. And we had to compete with others, again, dynamically. It was not like a fixed thing. What they might do something random, and we had to react to that and decide how to proceed further and make money and win the game. So this was something very interesting and was very unusual and very practical, as you mentioned. A lot of the courses are very practical oriented, and this was something I really enjoyed.
Yeah, in fact, I took that same course as well, and you have to actually, you have a 2 board members who are people working in the Pittsburgh community. They are working in various companies, and they effectively are your board members for your company. So you have to present to them as well, and it's a great class. Because we've talked so much about technical classes, I'll talk about one which is non-technical. So I took this class called Oral Communications. It's it sounds very basic, but effectively it was a small group of 20 of us in the class, and every class was really a presentation that you give to the class on various topics. So you have to go up to the class and make a speech to the group of 20 people on some topic that you have been given to prepare. So the first class was one where you're pitching a job. So you are the recruiter and you're pitching the job to the group of people who've come in. You have to basically convince them to join your company. The another one was where you are effectively a campus, the guy who gives the campus tours. So you basically take a group of prospective students and you walk them through the campus and you're giving them the tour. So the classes are they really throw you into the sort of the deep end. I mean people, kids are very afraid of presenting in front of people, and they want you to get over all of these things before you get out of there. So very practical, but at the same time quantitative, but at the same other things as well. Soft skills as well.
And they also use a lot of technology in their classes because it's such a tech-heavy school. They have access to great technology. So the simulations Harsh is talking about happen in a real time. And even for the communications classes, I remember they videotaped us. Did they video you as well? So they videoed us, and they showed each one of us got a video copy, and then they'd put us up on a big screen, and then they'd show us, like, this is how you look to your audience. So obviously it's not a very pretty sight. So that's how you improvise and you learn, because they have, it was literally a video guy would just come in, everything was done so seamlessly. Before you knew it, you were up on screen, literally within 2 minutes. So because the school is so reliant on technology and they have everything in-house, it's amazing how they use technology to deliver their classroom teachings as well. So some fun stuff. Tell us about travel. Did you guys travel at school? I know I travel immensely, both at undergrad and business school. It's a big part of learning, obviously. Tell us about your experiences at CMU with travel.
Sure. So, I ended up traveling more for fun than, I didn't end up taking a, semester abroad but effectively, for each year you end up getting a lot of breaks. So you have a spring break, which comes up where people typically end up traveling a lot. So I traveled, to a bunch of places, to Florida, to Mexico, as part of that. I also ended up traveling with a couple of, friends to Europe for one summer. So, and you travel to the other colleges in the US where your friends from high school are. So you end up getting a lot of opportunity to travel when you're there, which really opens you up. And then outside of that, something that I didn't partake, but they also allow you, or you have opportunities to go to London School of Economics or LSB for a semester or for a summer. You can also go to Semester at Sea, which is a program that they have. And Carnegie Mellon also has a collaboration with a school in Qatar. So you can actually spend a semester in Qatar. So there's a ton of opportunities to travel both for fun as well as for learning.
I think Umang has covered most of the things regarding travel, but I'll speak a little bit about my personal experiences and also my graduate program. I did one semester in Berkeley for summer school, and like you said, there's a lot of opportunities to do summer schools and semesters in different universities in the US and abroad, and there are a lot of affiliations as well. For my graduate program and most graduate master's programs, not the MBA, there are not much travel opportunities with regards through the program itself. But our university actually had an affiliation tie-up with a university in Greece. So for our department. And they were actually, one interesting thing was, like she was mentioning regarding technology, we had an electronic blackboard where our professor used to write on the blackboard and it used to come immediately on the blackboard in Greece. And obviously there was a microphone and speakers so we could communicate the questions and so on and so forth. So one part of the program was in summer, students from our department in Carnegie Mellon could go there to do some courses. So that was an option which people could take and was taken by a lot of my friends there.
Being in grad school, I had a car. I was lucky to have a car. So there were some lovely places around Pittsburgh, and at driving distances. Washington, D.C. is like a 4-hour drive. Then there are several whitewater rafting falls around Pittsburgh within an hour and a half drive. Ohio Pile, Ligonier. There are some Kaufman House. There are various scenic spots which are less than 2-3 hours drive from Pittsburgh. So we had a lovely time just traveling around Pittsburgh.
So let's move to life after CMU in terms of alumni networks and alumni support. Did the alumni community impact you in any way, or were you able to impact the alumni community anyway? Any support you have received since graduating from the alumni community?
So I think the alumni community is very strong, and I think Paresh will be able to speak more about it specifically. But for me personally, I would say, almost every city that I travel to in India, there are people from my class, either from my class or 1 or 2 years ahead or behind me, and the community is very strong. People are very well connected. Because the classes are so small, people end up just getting to know each other very well and forming sort of lasting friendships. So I would say I haven't personally tapped into the alumni community from a business perspective so far, but at least from a personal perspective, I've certainly benefited a lot from it.
Again, same for me. There are not many alumni in my field of work, but I have a lot of friends in Bombay, good friends who are actually alumni from the university. So, and also in the US, everywhere in the world. So whenever we travel, we meet up, we talk, and so on and so forth. But besides that, I've not used it regarding to work-related items.
Yeah, I've been lucky to be involved in the Alumni Association India since about 20 years now, since mid-90s. And we have about 1,200 known alumni living in India right now, about 150 to 200 in Bombay and surrounding areas. So it opens a lot of doors. Once you graduate from Carnegie Mellon, once you come in contact with an alumni, your appointment is guaranteed. Whether it works out or not is later, but once they read a mail, if any of us reads a mail that this guy's from Carnegie Mellon, this person, the door is opened. Personally, my company does business with at least 3 alumni, and we do so because they give us first right of refusal, in terms of business. So it's been great. Alumni network has picked up, although it's not as strong as other universities, we are getting there, and every year has been a better year for us. So, you can be assured of having a very good base in India for sure.
Yeah, I'll second that. If I get an email from anywhere in the world saying I'm a Carnegie Mellon alum, I just got one saying, can you help me with finding developers in Goa, some guy from Chicago. So I said, I don't know developers in Goa, but when you're here, let me know, we'll connect, etc. People find you on LinkedIn nowadays and they just see CMU in your CV and people email you. And I'm guessing we all email back. So there is definitely that sort of school camaraderie, which you'll find consistently across several schools. So I don't think it's specifically unique to CMU. As we bring the section on Carnegie Mellon specific questions to an end, just want your one sort of striking, most influential, how did CMU sort of impact you? Any one striking, impactful memory from CMU? How has it influenced you overall as an individual?
I don't know for a specific memory, but I would say, for me personally, I was a relatively shy kid growing up, and when I was in school, I tried at least to put myself in as many positions that would allow me to open up, and certainly it's a transformative experience. And I don't know if it's specific to CMU. I would say it's more specific to, or more general to, being in the US or being in an undergrad program like that. But I think it allows you to really open up. I mean, I was a teaching assistant for a couple of classes. So in my second year, I was literally teaching first year, holding a class for first year kids. And it's a pretty daunting experience to, go in a class with 30 kids and teach something that you've just learned last year and are certainly not an expert on. So I think the small things like this, and they allow you the opportunity to do these things, which I think is quite unique.
For me, I actually did a very technical degree in the computer science and even the masters, but right now I'm not using it. But one of the things I'm definitely using, and which had a big impact on me, are the analytical skills, analyzing things, various things, from projects to making other decisions. So actually using these skills and out-of-the-box thinking was very important as well. Like she mentioned, there's a lot of things, innovative things happening at Carnegie Mellon, like the electronic board I was mentioning earlier. So things like that, which you don't even think about at all, and it's actually possible. So trying to think about things which are not within the paper, but which are still possible. You think it's not possible, but it is possible to do.
Just to expand on what Harsh is saying, it's made me a better business person. The whole decision-making process is more refined now. There's more structure to the thought. You're able to analyze a situation much better than without the skills I acquired at Carnegie Mellon. So it made me a better business person, I feel. The whole process of approaching a situation, of making a decision, is more refined, more thought through. So I just feel it's helped me to be a better business person overall.
For me, I didn't know there were so many people out in the world all collaborate in one space who were so excited about math and technology. So I remember one morning I woke up and I was walking to class and there was a random number series that had been chalked all across campus. So I was walking to my class following this trail of numbers and wondering what happened, what is this chalk number series. And one of my friends in the computer science department obviously told me it was pi day that day. So someone had written out the entire value of pi across campus. Yeah, so it's just in school I think we learned up to 3 decimal places and that was hard enough to remember. So it's just one of those schools where people who are really excited about these things come together and collaborate. Then we had something called Buggy. I don't know if you guys remember Buggy. They would create these cars. So the whole machine, everything was designed by CMU students. Big enough for someone to actually sit inside it, and then they'd have buggy races on Sunday morning with this contraption that someone had designed. Then obviously they had the robotics club. So the robotics, they had those World Cup with robots, playing. I mean, there were just so many things going on at school, and it's just like, wow, I didn't know there were all these people out there who thought these things were exciting and were actually collaborating on these things. So for me, it was just overall an eye-opener in terms of like, wow, this is like a whole new world. I was exposed to a whole different world. Okay, moving on to professional questions. Considering you guys come from very prolific professional backgrounds, I thought it would be a good idea for everyone to get a sense of this. Apex, Goldman Sachs, HBS, Carnegie Mellon, you have all the most amazing brands on your CV. Tell us about some key learnings from each of these great institutions that you've been a part of.
So I would say a lot of these places, at least from a work perspective, places like Goldman Sachs and even Apex, they're pretty large institutions. I mean, Goldman Sachs, I think, has a 30,000, group of employees right now globally. The one thing, at least for me, that I found at all of these places is that, two things certainly stand out, and for everyone. I mean, one is, I would say, leadership, and the second one is entrepreneurship. Despite whatever, however large the environment that you're functioning in is, for you to succeed in that environment, you need to have, leadership skills, and you need to, you need to be an entrepreneur in whatever you're doing. So I would say, from the college experience as well as at the work experience, I mean, those are the two things that I, at a macro level, really think about and take away for myself.
Harsh, you went from undergrad in CS, then doing the masters, then you went to Citadel, and then family business. Can you join the dots for us? How were you making these decisions, and how did you get where you are today?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I did a business and computer science, two very different fields, and I decided I wanted to do to work also in the combination of the two fields, since I actually studied 6 years in that area, in both those areas. So I applied and got into Citadel Investment Group, which is it was at that point an $8 billion hedge fund located in Chicago, and was working as in both, a mixture of both, actually developing software to trade in markets. And the great thing about working there was that they immediately put us on software which made a difference of $500 million on the bottom line of the company. So it was not as if they sheltered us and tried to see what was happening and then make us work. But immediately as you enter from day one, you're working on projects which make a big impact to the firm, which was something really new to me, being straight out of college and university. And after a couple of years, I decided that I wanted to try something different and wanted to come home, actually. So I came back to India after that and joined the family business, where I'm doing steel trading and also in manufacturing. And something new we started was actually doing real estate, working in the real estate sector. So that was something new which I started after coming here.
Paresh, you've had a very successful run with your company. I've personally known you for the last now about 10, 11 odd years since I graduated, and I've personally witnessed you growing your organization. How have you managed this turnover of 1,200 plus crores, the growth in your business? What have you done to achieve this sort of success?
We have a steel manufacturing company, and to expand on that, we got into metals, zinc and aluminum. So we are sole distributors for Hindustan Zinc and Vedanta Aluminum for the geography we operate in. I was fortunate enough to recruit some really good people who've been fortunate enough to keep them motivated. So my team is more responsible than I am. But I'm fortunate to have a very good team of people. So we have three different verticals being headed by 3 different people, and that's worked out well for us so far. And we also have a big import business. We import steel and metals from South Korea, China. We bid in global auctions in Ukraine, Russia, Brazil, South Africa. So opportunities exist everywhere, all over the world. And India has a shortfall of steel and metals as far as consumption, less production in India. So there is an opportunity that exists which we are trying to exploit over the last 10, 12 years. So we've been fortunate enough to be in this space and have grown at a 10 to 15% CAGR since the last 12 years.
What I want to understand is, did you guys find any connect between, so Carnegie Mellon was great, we had a great experience, we had all this quantitative, interdisciplinary education. What was the direct implementation of your learnings from Carnegie Mellon at work? So you talked about it's very practical education, it taught you some finance. Can you illustrate to us any direct implementation? Because it's not, in India when we go to study, we're not going to study only to broaden our minds, etc. Education is a means to an end. So in what way do you think you could directly take your learnings from there and implement them?
I mean, at the cost of being repetitive, I said finance was not part of my DNA when I graduated as an engineer. So, learning finance itself was very helpful to me at Carnegie Mellon, and I've been able to apply that to my business. And especially when you're growing at a fast pace, capital management is one of the first things that you need to know and get your hands on. So I've been lucky to get this grounding at Carnegie Mellon, and it stood me in good stead. And like I said earlier, the alumni network also has opened a few doors in the finance world also. Just being from a top American University, being an MBA from there, you know, you're looked upon more favorably than someone else, you know. So it opens doors for you definitely. So it's been really helpful to me in that sense.
So one example I can immediately think off my head, which actually had a direct impact of what I do, was the negotiations class which I took as in an MBA program. So one of the things that they mentioned was that in negotiation with other people, the person who first puts a price out, it tends to be a benchmark against which other people tend to measure the return offer. So giving a very simple example, you go to Colaba and you go to one of these small shops and you want a trinket or something and they quote you as, say, 200 rupees. But when you think about 200 rupees, you'll think, okay, if 200, maybe I can bargain down to 100 or 80 or 90. You start off with that. But actually, the cost, they might be only 10 rupees. So you're looking at 200 rupees as the benchmark to which you take as your bargaining power. So that's one very simple example of something, very practical, which I learned and which I still remember and I use on day-to-day basis, whether it's work or buying something as, from outside.
Yeah, I want to be your customer.
For me, I actually studied science in undergrad, but I ended up working in finance right after. So the environment that I was in, I was with people that had really focused on finance in their undergrad, people who had studied at Wharton or Harvard undergrad. And for me, I guess the specific benefit that I ended up having from Carnegie Mellon was that, two things I would say. One, that the technical, skills that I had learned over there were extremely strong in, coming in the finance world, because, people don't see you as an outsider. When you say you went to Carnegie Mellon, people, have an immense amount of respect for you because they know that, at least from the quantitative side, the technical side, you are very strong, despite the fact you might not have studied finance specifically, but you'll be able to pick it up in no time. That is one. Second, I would say is that I was focusing on investing in technology companies, and the fact that I had actually a technology undergrad background really helped a lot, because when you go meet these companies, you understand their business. You're not coming in from a finance perspective, but more as a partner to them, someone that really understands what they are doing. So I think that really helped me as well.
Okay, we'll move on to application-related questions that people are most waiting for. In this competitive environment with abysmal application statistics, what did you do to make your application stand out?
Sure. So I, when I applied, to be honest, I can't really remember of any specific thing, but I would say the fact that I had sort of a rounded experience in high school, wasn't only focused on academics, but also had had some leadership experience in high school, and had played a lot of sports, and again within that represented the school in certain sports. I think that really helps a lot, and you have to really show passion in something. So for me, showing passion in the pursuit of science was really what stood me out, I would say.
So one part of my application was writing an essay. So I wrote an essay about my trip to one of the forts close by to Bombay called Rajmashi, and my experience there while free climbing up one of the forts, where I nearly slipped and had a near-death experience in that sense, and explain how it affected me. So I felt that was something unique and something which may have differentiated me from other applicants.
I think, I was able to explain in my statement of purpose why I was pursuing an MBA after finishing my engineering, that I wanted to acquire these business and leadership skills which would help me to run my own family business better. So I think I had some clarity in thought in my statement of purpose, and that helped me in the application process. It came through to the reader, I guess.
When we apply to school, at least when I applied to school, there was no structured assistance available for admissions processes, etc., which is why we set up this organization. But who did you get help from as you went through the process and you navigated this? Who were you getting assistance from?
Sure. So I applied a while back, and at that point, I didn't really go to a formal counselor for help. I ended up basically reaching out to friends and family. So, people that knew me best and would be able to help me effectively communicate my story. And then I also had some people that I knew who had gone to the colleges, So I had a cousin who had gone to Carnegie Mellon. He ended up helping me, explain what was unique about the school and what, that effectively helped me put together, my story for the school. So I think it helps to talk to people who've really gone to the school and understand what is unique about each of these schools.
Again, same as both of them, there was no formal external structure which was assisting us in applications. But at our school at Cathedral, we had a counselor who would help with the recommendations and the nitty-gritties regarding the applications. So definitely use that help. And otherwise, it was direct internet and email to talk to the university, talk to professors there, and which tend to be at least in Carnegie Mellon, they are very approachable and answer all your questions. So that was the way to look, ask questions and get your answers to whatever you had questions.
My answer is from 28 years ago. So there were no computers, there was no internet. So there was this US Education Information Institute at Marine Lines, just close to here. So we used to go there, and they had this basement where all these universities had one book, one book on each university. So you browse through that, and they had some application forms. So we had to go home, typewriter. Actually, use a typewriter to type it. They would not accept anything handwritten. So typewriter and that US Education Institute were the only guiding lights for us.
I would just add that I guess more recently I applied for business school. So then I ended up using, a formal counselor, for help, and I think it's extremely helpful. I mean, I ended up working with someone who spent a lot of time personally with me. I think that sort of really makes a big difference. If you have someone that really spends time with you and understands, what moves you, what motivates you, and helps put together your unique story and put that forward.
Exactly to that point. We also believe that personal interactions of this nature. So when I was, the way we structured the entire experience at Reach IV is basically bent from my own experiences. There was no structured help organized, so that's what we offer. There were no interactions such as this available. So yes, you could go online and look at the US News rankings, but a ranking of 3 versus 7 doesn't really give you an insight into the school. So I think conversations like these is what really gave us a glimpse. So thank you for sharing those glimpses with us in the audience. I'm going to open for audience Q&A. We have about 5 to 10 minutes. Just feel free to raise your hand and we'll have a mic sent over to you. Any questions that are career and academic related, please? Can you repeat the question, please?
You were applying for engineering as undergrad.
Right.
Wouldn't you have preferred the West Coast?
Yeah, I mean, I actually did apply to West Coast colleges as well, but I was again sort of focused on engineering, but wanted a good business experience as well. So I think that was one thing which was unique. And the second is that CMU actually has almost all the big West Coast colleges on the campus itself. So there's Google on campus, Microsoft on campus. So they basically run research, and they have employees that work, are sitting on campus working with the professors. So from a technology and a engineering perspective, it's so integrated with the valley that it's unbelievable. I mean, it's almost like you're in the West Coast. Because I remember there's one building that Google has recently donated. There's a building that Bill Gates has recently donated. That's right. And then one of the professors from CMU had come up with the first browser, Alta Vista. So when he sold it, they ended up building a building out of that, which is a robotics building. So there's so much, so many of these companies that are on campus that you don't feel like you're away. And the alumni network in the West Coast is extremely strong with Carnegie Mellon.
Just one more thing. Now, if you are not sure whether it's which particular engineering you want to do, and Carnegie Mellon is very on top of the list for computer engineering, but not so much, let's say, in chemical engineering, not even known for it. So would you still go to Carnegie Mellon?
I think if you know for a fact that you want to do chemical engineering, that and you sort of know that your passions lie in that, and that you want to do that for the next, at least for undergrad and really for the future, then you should for sure go to a college that is very strong in that. But if you don't, then I would suggest, I mean, my personal view is that you go to a place which is strong in various different things, that allows you the flexibility to change, midway through, because it's, you want to change if you decide.
especially when you go for an undergraduate program, because at the age of 15, 16, we've been exposed to now our schools here, friends who've been, etc. So we've heard the word chemical engineering, but we don't really know what it entails. So a lot of times you'll go to school and then you shift majors or double major or minor in something else. So it's always nice to have a school that has this breadth of opportunities, because in case you don't like what you thought you wanted to study, you can very easily change. The systems are very flexible. They're very open to you sort of just shifting. And to the tech thing, I mean, MIT is also in Boston, right? So it's located on the East Coast. So there's absolutely, I mean, you'll get recruited to the West Coast very easily. The companies all coming to campus. They do road shows. They come to campus and speak to us, etc. So you'll eventually, if you want to be on the West Coast, you'll land up in Silicon Valley nonetheless. But it's like it's not about a West Coast or the East Coast. It's about finding the right school that's attractive to Silicon Valley, regardless of which coast you're at.
Yeah, just to add to that, from personal experience, our daughter was enrolled in the pre-med school, in freshman year, because she wanted to be a doctor and she was very passionate about it. And she landed up graduating as an economics major. So, I mean, you need to go to a school which has everything so the student can actually decide what the true interests are, because what seems like chemical engineering now, once they get deeper into the subject, they'll say, it's not for me. They can explore something else.
So a couple of questions pretty specific to undergrad at Carnegie. One is, what would you say about the advising system there? Because because I'm going to TEPA this fall, when I look at the classes I have to take, the number of prerequisites per class is more than the total number of classes I can take in one semester. So how would you say is the advising structured? Is it very well made sure that you're able to take all the classes that you want to take?
So there's an advisor there who for all incoming students, and this was one thing which I really liked about there. I spoke to the advisor when I visited the campus before I actually joined Carnegie Mellon. So they will show you all the requirements which you have and help you with that, and you can also talk to them through email before once you're accepted and you get into the university. You can talk to them through email and they'll go through the requirements with you. So some requirements which are prerequisites are for mathematics, you might have done it here already. You can do a placement course, so you can skip the course, for example. So that's something which is very possible. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and it's more of what you would like to do. So there's some things which you have to do in the first semester, like intro to business or something like, courses like that. But there is some flexibility and people are very helpful. So you need to go out and actually approach them and tell them that this is what I want to do, this is what is possible, because they won't know that what is in your mind in that sense. But they're very approachable and very helpful, so definitely take advantage of that.
And to your question about the class, the lots of prerequisites, those might be one of the more sort of junior level or senior level classes. So by the time you come to that level, you would have already taken those, so don't worry about that.
So moving on, I'm planning to I'm planning to major in business administration because I'm in the TEPA school. And with the TEPA school, you have to minor in something outside of business. So if I minor in information systems, is it possible to very easily then move on to a technical master's degree?
Yeah. So I kind of did a similar thing.
Okay.
I actually went in as a business major. And then I liked the computer science course, which was a requisite, required course for business. And I did first I was thinking of doing a minor in computer science along with my business degree. And then I landed up doing a double major in computer science with the business degree. So yes, there's a lot of flexibility. If you decide to do a minor or major in another school, whether it's drama or economics or whatever it is, you can do that. Information systems, now I need a little bit of clarity on that because there are three different areas of information systems in Carnegie Mellon. One is information systems, which is part of the business degree, which is actually a concentration. Then there's information systems, which is more databases related, which is a separate degree in the humanities and social sciences school. And the third is actually computer science, where you can do information system related programming. So depending on what you're interested in, there's a difference on what you can do. But you can, if you're doing, for example, one of the more technical ones, then it's easier to do a master's in a technical degree. But with information systems as a concentration, chances of doing something more technical is tougher versus doing something tougher now and then moving towards something easier.
And finally, when you think about Carnegie Mellon, it comes across as an extremely tech-oriented geeky type of school. Is that really the situation? And how are general extracurriculars placed in Carnegie? Anybody?
Firstly, I mean, by the way we speak and look, I hope
No,
that
I'm sure. No, that's not what I meant at all.
I did wear really thick black dark glasses in school, but
Yeah, I would say it is a, as I was saying, it's a little bit for, to each its own. There are, the school I would say is divided into sub-schools. So if you're in computer science, you can, you can decide to be a part of a group that's extremely geeky, or you can try to be a little bit more normal. So it's really up to you how you sort of play that. I think the school has, a very strong sort of, social community. For example, the Greek community is very, very strong. As part of a fraternity, we had tons of events. We would play a lot of sports together. We had, very various parties that we would throw. So there's a lot of social activities that, and I had a group of friends that we'd go out together with, once we sort of once we were above 21. I'm just kidding. So it's effectively, I would say that the school is very social. It's certainly not a very geeky school. It's very academically strong. So you have to spend a lot of time in school and, with your books, but at the same time, there's enough going on campus and otherwise that you'll have a good time if you want to. So.
I kind of agree with what he's saying. It depends on which school you're in. Like computer science is much more difficult and much more work than for some other majors. For example, like English or something else. But there are a lot of things to do outside of campus, and there's something I would recommend is definitely you should explore to do things outside the campus and extracurriculars. There's Indian Student Organization. They have like a Diwali show, and they have Navratri Garba and things like that. If you're interested in those things, then they have everything like from Explorers Club where you can do outdoor adventure sports. So any kind of activity you want, pretty much it's available. The Greek houses and everything. So as long as you're interested and you make an effort, you can find whatever you want to do, sports related or cultural or whatever else is you're interested in.
Yeah, we will, as part of our annual ritual, we will have a send-off for all the freshmen and graduate students. So that is on the 27th of July. We'll get a mail. So we'll introduce you to current students, whether you are sophomores or juniors and seniors, because they tend to be back in India at this time in July. So you will meet them, they will introduce you to campus life and tell you all the tricks of the trade. So you will have a normal, vibrant campus life.
Thank you.
we have time for maybe one more question. Is anyone?
I'm currently doing my undergrad in environmental engineering, and I'm planning for the grad program in environmental engineering in the civil and environmental engineering department. So, I mean, I'm into co-curricular activities and also good at academics, but I mean, I'm not exactly sure that for application, should I focus more on research, or, I mean, I just completed my second year, or continue the way I'm doing, or, I mean, for the application, for me to be accepted.
I think, does anyone
You'd be the
have
expert
a
on
general
that.
comment on this? I mean, so I'll give you a very general comment on this. You need a pretty all-rounded portfolio when you apply to school. So you will need strong academics as well as strong extracurricular. Specifics on what you have done in the past and what you got right now, we can talk about after the event, but we need more detail on your background profile. I need to understand when you say I have decent extracurricular, what decent comprises of,
because like I have gone through profiles of some schools, and they focus only on academics and research, and they said, I mean, they have strictly mentioned that they do not consider any of the co-curricular, extracurricular activities. So is CMU one of those, or it's?
So at the graduate school level, they definitely are more focused on research and academics.
Okay.
That being said, they will not discount your extracurricular, so you should definitely highlight them in your application. Some one of the schools where they just say, submit your grades and your research, and that's all we want to know. They want to know what else you've been up to along with your research and academics. Okay. So it does matter. And does anyone have one final question, or should we?
Average cost per year would be how much?
At the undergraduate level, it's about $38,000 a year in terms of tuition. Carnegie Mellon's a private school. They do not offer any financial aid to international students. So that's something that people should know, because when we applied, we actually didn't know that. Because you hear that you go abroad to study, you'll get scholarships and all. CMU does not have any undergraduate funding at all. But then, just to give you a sense on the ROI, if finance is a question, the first opening salary you'll get in a job in America will be in the range of between $60,000 to $75,000 a year, plus bonus and all, depending on obviously whether you're finance or consulting or whatever. So it's about a 4 or 5 years cycle before you can take care of your entire finances, and then you're free.